So Garvin, welcome, come forward. Ben, come forward, please. Yunus, come forward, please. We're going to be listening to different generations, how they're celebrating, how they're navigating within today's society. And we're going to be discussing what benefits they can learn from each other. We will begin. Let me hand the mic to you first, Garvin. Garvin, please give a summary. Tell us about yourself, your age.
Boy, I'm trying to think of the short version. We don't get these sort of events celebrating black men in Hounslow very often, so I could be here a long time. I've grown up in the Hounslow Borough pretty much all my life. I was born in Grenada, Caribbean. From Grenada, we moved to Feltham, as you naturally do. So I've lived in the Hounslow Borough since 1985. I live just round the corner now. But yeah, lived around here, educated around here. Pretty much, I run a charity which is within the Hounslow Borough. I was the first African and Caribbean learning mentor for the Hounslow Borough, going around to it was 14 secondary schools then, but there's more now. So I used to float around every single secondary school across the borough. Worked for Hounslow Youth Service, Hounslow Education Department. Now I run my own charity, so I've done a lot within the Hounslow Borough. So when I saw something like this, I was like, oh, what's going on here? They've got to be a brave person, but yeah, Amari is...
Excellent. Your 3-week-old child, boy or girl?
Little boy, Hudson. It's his mum's birthday today. So her and her mum were going out, so I said, right, he's going to come with me. So I could have easily said, no, I'm not coming, but I thought, an occasion like this may never happen again. So, son, you've got to come and take part in this. So
respect to you that your wife is going to celebrate her birthday, have a good time with her mother, which is really conscientious of you to be doing that, and to be bringing this young prince Hudson here today, 3 weeks old. So no, I commend you for that, and you're leading by example in that regard. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ben, tell us a bit about yourself. How old are you? I think you're younger than Garvin.
Middle,
middle, and the youngest one is yet to come. But tell us a bit about yourself, Ben.
I'm 35. I've been running street food businesses, and I import fruit from the Caribbean as well. But the whole thing with, going back to what you're talking about, education and stuff, what I'm aiming to do through the produce that I'm getting directly from the Caribbean is educating people as to how poisonous the other stuff they're getting from other parts of the world is, and there's a situation where people have a kind of monopoly on ethnic foods, and they don't care about the people that they're supplying them to. So my thing is I go directly to the farms in St. Lucia. We get like organic foods from there. They're all slow grown. I'd like to educate people into the fact that these are seasonal produce, so it's not always going to be sweet. It's not always going to be pretty. It's going to be different variations, fat, skinny, long, beat up sometimes, whatever. But that's what nature gives us.
Right. And
I think in a place like this where we were deprived from sunshine, it's good to get sunshine in the fruits
right.
and the foods there, and from a source that people care about.
Right.
The people that are consuming it.
So an entrepreneur in that regard and conscientious one at that. Excellent. Yunus, tell us a bit about yourself, your age and a bit about your background.
Okay, so my name's Yunus. I apologise for my tardiness. I'm actually Dr. Baker's nephew. I'm 24. I'm working in the field of AI. I'm an AI engineer. I've been educated in a rather white middle class setting, despite obviously being black. I'm also Muslim. And recently, so I went at the start of the year, last Christmas, back to Guyana to see my grandmother for the first time. Never been back to Guyana. Also want to go to Barbados. I've got heritage in Barbados, Brazil, and Nigeria. I feel like the topic of black history, black excellence is one that is either thrust upon you and you can't avoid it, or you need to rediscover for yourself. So I feel like I'm in the chapter of rediscovering some of my black history, some of my black heritage, my black identity, because I've grown up in this society which has been predominantly white for all of my life. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Thank you. So let's open it up now. So I want to ask you, and you can volunteer, and if you don't, I'm going to go around again in circles. What does celebrating blackness mean to you?
Celebrating blackness to me, it's not just a 1 month focus. Do you know what I mean? It's not like October here again, 1st of November stop. Do you know what I mean? It's just part, whether it's history or just promoting what's good in the communities. It's bad in all communities, and I don't know. I sit on a lot of these forums and these Zoom chats, and I get frustrated with them, and that because I can hear all the different stats about knife crime, youth violence. X amount of black young people have been stopped and pulled over and involved in this X, Y, and Z. But what's the good? Because I know there's a lot of good, but we focus on the negative all the time. So celebrating blackness is just, I don't know. It feels like we shouldn't have these events. It feels like we shouldn't have these events because it should be something that we just do anyway. But we have to have that spotlight on it because it's not done. Otherwise, it's just going to watch the news and it's another black teenager involved in this, another black man involved in that, and blah, 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 blah. And it just creates that real negative image. And as we all know, there's a lot of good. And it's just promoting the good that's out there. Otherwise, if we want the next generation young people to come up and do better, we've got to show them better and show them the good that's within our culture, within our society, and within our community.
I think that's important that you've highlighted that because it speaks to what some of you were mentioning earlier on, that it's difficult to identify role models. And if it's within the climate that Garvin's just highlighted, how are you going to find role models when we're always being pointed to the negative statistics about black men? Ben, what does celebrating blackness mean to you?
I think for me, I mean, not separating myself, like I said, what you were saying about role models. And I think a lot of times we detach ourselves from the youth and we say, okay, like I got a 14-year-old boy who works with me and he was brought to me and he was like, look, he doesn't know his dad, he needs positive role models. And, you know, what a lot of people don't understand is like, I've got daughters. So for me, having another male in the environment that has me or someone like me as a role model, it's a safer place for my daughters, you know, because it's all part of a wider community, you know, and it's like people say, oh, that's that kid over there, but that's all of our kids, you know, that's something that we should have that support network for all of these young disenfranchised children to be able to provide opportunities, and I think a lot of those opportunities come through awareness and setting the example. You know, I had friends, when I first started my business, I had friends working with me, come and help me out when I was doing festivals and stuff. And they're all drug dealers. And they're like, wow, I didn't know you can make this much money from doing this. And I'm like, yeah, because there's no awareness. There was no role models in our environment. You know, there was no one for us to look up to be like, the only thing that we could see were the people that were showing symbols of wealth. Yes. You know? But there was lots of people within our community there. And I also felt like even when I tried to go down the professional route, like I studied law, I tried to go down that route. And I was meeting people that were kind of gatekeeping, that were from the black community in these high up positions. And a lot of the time they were like, look, it was hard for me, so I must make it hard for you. But I'm like, so they're like, yeah, you need to show your initiative, you know. But I'm like, me coming to you is showing that I'm making an effort, you know. You should be like, all right, here's the platforms. And in that world, it took a person outside of the community to be like, look, I've got the whole world open, you know. You can go over here, you can go over there. I've got opportunities over there, but there's a platform, you know, where then the choices are open, you know, that you can. And he had a conversation with me afterwards and was like, look, I can see you don't want to do this. Not that you don't want to do it, but I think you're better off doing something else. And I took that on board and I was like, yeah, you're right, because I was in that corporate environment and it was like, you know,
so opening avenues, having others who are in those avenues, opening those avenues, or paying attention to you to redirect you where they see your talent is an aspect of celebrating that blackness, you would say, yes?
Yeah, just give the opportunities, you know?
Right.
be open to it, because it's like, all right, cool. Like with this young boy that works for me, I'm like, look, it's open, but it doesn't mean that it's like, you could do what you want. There's rules, there's a protocol to being within this environment and working within this environment. And if you disobey that, there's laws to this, and there's you have to be accountable, because he hasn't been taught accountability by anybody.
Right.
So it's like, why are you late? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like, cool, don't be late. Yeah, I won't be late, but then he's late the week after.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, if you're 10 minutes late, just let me know. Give me the heads up.
So that's an investment in him that I think a lot of the youth today don't understand.
Yeah.
When you're directing them to be better, they're resisting that, thinking you're punishing or chastising them, when in actuality, you're trying to polish them. So that's an interesting paradigm that you've described there. Yunus, what does it mean to you?
Celebrating blackness. I feel like I'm allowed to say this as the youngest person on the panel. I don't have a definition yet. This is foreign to me. I'm not trying to say I've had a traumatized upbringing being black, but a lot of the time I'm black when it's negative. I'm black when the stereotypes are being applied to me. So I haven't really had that much opportunity to celebrate this blackness. So hopefully one of the things I'll get out of this is start to define what celebrating blackness actually looks like for me. It's not something I'm ashamed of being black. I'm not trying to say that as if there's a I don't know, skeletons in the closet. It's just, this is uncharted relatively. This is uncharted territory for me, which is, I think, why we brought it upon ourselves to start that process, because there does need to be more of that.
That's really interesting. Knowing, okay, obviously you're my nephew, but you've got your master's degree from a prestigious university in Bristol. You're in a really high-end and high-flying job as an innovative AI engineer. And you don't know what celebrating blackness is. This is profound for me, because that's success. He epitomizes success, yet he doesn't know how to celebrate it. And I want everyone to pay attention to that. It's my nephew. This is the first time I'm hearing this. Let's move on then. So, is it important to celebrate black masculinity? That's a different question. And I asked this question why? If we look from an American context, we see the emasculation of black men. Primarily, forget the wider society. If you want to look at Hollywood, black men having to get into female roles or wear female garments and it just so that they can make it in the industry. But we see it more insidiously close up, that society pitches black women, American context, against black men, thereby emasculating them and speaking about their irrelevance. So I want to ask you, again, within today's context, UK context, is it important to celebrate black masculinity today?
Yeah, I think so. Just being a man, just being a human, being a man, with your black, white, Chinese, whatever, but just being a man. Like today, you highlighted the fact that I brought my son along with me. I haven't done nothing super. I've just done what a dad's supposed to do. But I feel like because it's almost like a black man doing it, you have to, do you know what I mean? Well, but I'm not doing nothing. I brought my son along and I've fed him. Do you know what I mean? I should not be getting no props for that. That's basic stuff. But that's the society that we live in. So, and it's changing that narrative, changing that way of thinking. We're human beings, yeah? In society now, you could go down a whole massive rabbit hole if you talk about him, her, this, that. It could go crazy. I'm a man, I'm a black man, I have my wife, my children, and we should promote people that do positive.
Thank you for that. Very clear, unequivocal in that. Ben?
Yeah, I think we should celebrate black masculinity. Because I think, again, if you go back to like role models and stuff, there's a lot of symbols, but you know, when you you scratch beneath the surface, what's really there? You know, and I think I was around a lot of men that were displaying that they were men, but when it comes to accountability and responsibility, they weren't showing me nothing. So I didn't really grow up. I had an arrested development with regard to that. You know, I had to learn from being around other men outside of my family, you know. So, and then it's like, I can impart with that knowledge and educate other young men, you know, with what I've learned. So I think it's important to sell it, because I don't think there's a distinction between what it is. You know, you need to be like, yo, these guys are not men, you know. I think in order to do that, you have to draw a comparison by displaying what masculine energy is, what black masculine energy is, you know.
And that's really important. Again, another key point, adding to what Garvin said, responsibility, self-accountability. This is part and parcel of being a man generally, but looking at the negativity that surrounds us as black men, we have to highlight these normal assumptions and own them.
Yeah.
Because I think we tend to fit into that stereotype where we say, okay, if that's what they think about us, then we're going to live in that way. And as you said, Garvin, like, there is a stereotype, absent fathers in this particular regard. And so, no, it should be normal seeing you with your baby here in that instance, but it's not a normality today. Yunus, for yourself, what's your response to that same question?
I feel like I've got a short story that kind of follows on from that. I do think we should celebrate black masculinity. I think we need to balance out the narrative a tiny bit there. So in my last year at uni, one of my flatmates had a kid, or got pregnant rather, got his girlfriend pregnant. And I wanted to try and help and support. And they live in Cambridge, not too far, but far. And I made a point of, I want to try and go down and see that kid every single month. Because subconsciously, I didn't realize this until later, the whole thing is, oh yes, Yunus, are you going to grow up to be the absent black father or the present black father? And there was that seed of insecurity in me that I had to prove it. It's not even my kid, but I have to prove it. I have to be present. I have to help. And one time my mum was saying, the kid's almost 2 at this point. His name's Milo. My mum was saying, oh yeah, Yunus, it's really good how frequently you've been going up to Cambridge and seeing Milo. You're really present. And I had a bit of a moment. And what should have been a celebration was a bit of a negative point. It was like at least I haven't failed. At least I'm able, it's not even my child, but I'm able to prove maybe I can be present as a black adult, as a mentoring or parental role. And I think you get yourself into situations like that because we haven't balanced the narrative. And I think one of the ways we can balance the narrative is absolutely celebrating black masculinity, because that's one of the roles as support networks and fathers and friends. That's one of the roles I think masculine black figures play and should play.
That leads nicely into my next question. Do you feel that pressure that you had is something that's been inherited from the older generations of black men? So my question to all of you, are there lessons learned, positive or negative, from the older generations that you have carried down or been affected by positively or negatively?
I'd say quickly, I think naturally we want to right the wrongs that have gone before us. And everyone's got some kind of guiding or wise figure that is like, we've seen our generation be afflicted by this. Here's what we took of it. We can distill that knowledge and channel it through you, and you want to right those wrongs. So that's a preface to a short answer, absolutely. Yeah.
Garvin?
Yeah, for me, obviously my biggest influence when I was growing up was my dad. I lived with my mum and dad all of my life until obviously I moved out. But my dad grew up in Chiswick in the late 60s, early 70s, around that time, and it was very different England around then. So naturally, he met my mum in Grenada, they got married, brought us up, me and my sister. And when I started to go to school and that round here, he was like, right, the teachers are going to be like this, so you got to do this. And it can have a kind of negative, but for me, it kind of made me work harder. It made me want to work harder and kind of prove people wrong. So I don't know if that was kind of a negative or not. I can tell you an experience when reflecting on the stuff that my dad said to me was kind of, I had egg on my face at the end of it. It was my head of year, Mr. Ahern, Mr. Robert Ahern. We're good friends now. I was in year 7. My dad gave me a proper in the kitchen haircut. Mr. T style, the sides were shining, everything like that. Everything about this haircut was inappropriate for school, but you're my son, go to school. So anyway, went into school, walked past Mr. Ahern's office, and he's like, hey, Garvin, can you come to my office, please? So went in the office. He said, your haircut is inappropriate for school. Something like, what? My first reaction, thinking back to what my dad used to tell me, was, nah, sir, you're racist. You're only saying it because I'm black. He just looked at me. He had a picture on his desk. He just looked at me and just said, picked up the picture. Mr. Ahern, white guy, turns around with his black wife, 2 mixed-race children. I was like, yes, sir, I'll tell my dad to not do it again. And that, so it has positives and negatives. Yeah.
So that's important. So not everything our parents tell us as a trigger is the right thing to say. Exactly. And because a lot of young children are doing that today.
Yeah.
You're racist, you're racist.
You're racist,
and that's the default thing.
I grew up in Feltham. Look at all my school pictures. I was the only black person in the class in all my school pictures. I didn't really experience racism. I just got on with people. And I think if you look for it, you'll find it. Right. If you look for it, you will find it. But when you just get on with your life, mate, it's just a lot easier. But it's that example I gave there from my dad. If I carried on with that attitude, you will find racism. You would find this everywhere. And I ran to be a local councillor in the 2018 local elections. The only black person there. I didn't care about that. If I focused on that road, you're just going down into a complete rabbit hole. We need to just get on with this and deal with it.
Right, absolutely. Ben, anything to add to you two?
What was the original?
So are there any lessons that you've learned from the older generations, positive or negative, that impacts on your generation and lifestyle now?
Well, personally, I think, and I speak with my friends about it, I think obviously the dynamic was different. My parents' generation, because everybody was having a good time, you know, it was kind of just like kids came out of partying, you know, like it was kind of, that's most of my friends, the same situation as well. Right. People, I don't really have many friends that have both their parents that had a stable relationship. There was, you know, so I think we're more, all of my peers that I grew up with, we're more so trying to unravel these kind of, you know, the lack of responsibility that a lot of our parents had, and try to now understand what it means to be responsible. So I feel like, as an example of what not to do, no disrespect, it is what it is, you know. But I feel like, yeah, me having a lot of the conversations I have with my friends are based around that, you know. It's like us as parents now, how are we going to do it different, and what mistakes did they make? And rather than, I think it's like, you know, if you got aspects about your personality that have been created in your formative years as a child due to trauma, abuse, whatever it might have been, you know, as you get older, it's like, why would you then pass that to your kids? It's like you got like a little kind of thing you got to put in a box, because you're gonna, you know, it's gonna be with you. You know, you can unravel and understand what it is, but it's still gonna be with you. But then, why would you then pass that on to the next generation? So I think it's important to understand how to do things better, what to do, what not to do, and just to be accountable and responsible in referencing the mistakes that were made, you know, but not hold on to anything and not be, I'm not venomous about anything. I'm like, look, I understand, you know, and I forgive you, you know, but I really understand, you know, you were, 19, 20, having a good time, and in the midst of it all, you had children, you know, and you never really, you know, had a foundation set to be together, and, you know, it just happened. Right. And then you were trying to work things out, and someone said it to me once. It goes, look at that boy over there. It's like, yeah, it's a 20-year-old. He's like, yeah, that's your dad. how responsible do you think, you know what I'm saying, by today's standards, you think that, you know, not say to say everybody, there are people, but just as a general, you know, what do they know, you know, at that age?
Right. No, interesting. I'm going to move the conversation on a little bit. And while we're celebrating black men, we've got colleagues here from different institutions, different ethnic backgrounds. As black men, what would you say to predominantly white society on how you feel they should treat you? Yeah, it's one of those questions. What do you want to say to white society on you as a black man?
Me?
And how you should be treated by them?
I don't get treated like a black man. I want to get treated as a man. You know what I mean? I don't expect no special treatment or nothing like that because of the colour of my skin. I just want a fair crack at the whip like everyone else. Simple. That's all it is. I don't want to walk into a room and because I'm black, I have to fit a quota, so I'm going to get a little step up, or because I'm black, I'm going to get held back because they don't want... I just want to be treated fairly, get on with it. I reckon that the wider society just gets on. You can... Obviously, you're going to have your ignorant idiots that treat people by the colour of their skin, religion, or whatever, but I don't know. It's just my opinion. I believe people just see people for how they are. If this person's a dickhead, I'm going to treat him like a dickhead. Excuse my language, excuse that term. But if he's all right, he's all right. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's black, white, Chinese, whatever, you're always going to have idiots. No matter how many of these sort of celebration events that you have, you're always going to have those one or two idiots. But I reckon society as a whole tends to just get on.
Right.
And that...
Excellent. Do any of you have anything to add to what's been said? Do you agree with that sentiment?
No, I agree with it.
Good. And I think that is really important because this same question, if asked to my generation, because it was asked, and they put out expectations to white Britain because of how we were being treated. So now, hearing this from your generations, there is a shift from how my generations looked at that. Go on.
I was going to say, I grew up around Feltham in like the 80s, 90s, when you used to have the British National Party and the National Front do marches every Saturday up and down on the high street. If you focus on that, you're not going to go nowhere. You're not going to go nowhere in anywhere at all. I just got on with it. I just got on with it. I had black friends, white friends, Chinese friends. You just get on with it. And you're going to have people... There is discrimination out there. There is racist people out there. We can't stop it. Just have to get on with it. And those sort of people, left them to it. You're fighting your battle over there. I'm doing what I need to do, and I'm bringing who I need to bring with me to get to where I need to go. I don't know. That's just my humble opinion.
No, excellent. Thank you. Yunus, you want to chime in on this?
I was just going to ask, you touched on there has been a shift. It's 33 years between us, roughly. How would you have answered that question my age?
Gosh, he's thrown a question at me. I didn't expect that.
It wasn't an easy question.
With regards to myself, because of the brutality I'd faced from 13, being thrown in the back of vans, transported between police stations because they were finding a cell or a unit to give me a beating, feeling hunted when I left my home right the way through my 20s. Got scars on my arms from the cuffs, from being pulled up backwards. Being triggered when the George Floyd thing happened, because the similar thing happened to me when the police arrested me in 1989, coming back from the Notting Hill Carnival, and flung me to the floor. This is where I got the scars from the cuffs from my back. And one officer had his boot on my face as the other one ripped my black T-shirt off, spat on my back, took me to court. I was in the legal profession, and they tried to ruin my career. It wasn't until I appealed, went to the High Court, won my case and everything. But that was traumatizing. And that was a culmination of a whole teenagehood of being hunted. And my expectation of what I would have said at the time at your age, when if I spoke to white society, was a one-word question. Why? That's what would have been my question. Why? I don't have a criminal record. I've been an upstanding citizen. All of us have been naughty when we were younger, teenagers doing our things. But feeling hunted as a black male in British society and persecuted in the way that we were was horrific. As you know, as a young man, I sleep very lightly because doors being kicked off, people being dragged, if it's a gang thing, if it's the police, the resentment and hatred for the police at that age, not now. We engage. The police have changed a lot. They've still got a long way to go. But the engagement, I know there's an officer here, and I know that, and seeing him here is such a positive thing to be here in that instance. At your age, in an event like this, we wouldn't have had a police officer sitting in here. We would have had bully vans outside, waiting for us to come, coming outside, like what's happened, finding myself flying up in the air, landing on a bonnet, T-shirt being ripped open, hands down the front of my trousers, looking for what they call jewelry, and being humiliated. That was my experience at your age. Sorry, he asked a question, so I've gone there. But moving on to the next stage now, because it's refreshing that that's not your reality. Really, it's refreshing, it's not your reality. So my final question to you would be, because you've said some really good things about your friends and everything like that. We're talking about celebrating blackness. Do you celebrate blackness with your non-black friends? And how does that look? And do they celebrate you, not because you're black, because you're you?
I would start off by saying yes. Thankfully, I think I have a very multicultural friendship group, and it is one where I'm just seen as another person in the group. It is one, like already what I'd ask for society is, obviously I'm black. It's not that I don't want that to be a part of my identity, but just look at me as another man. So yeah, I think when I have had success, thankfully I've had a lot of success, it's been celebrated. And when I've slipped up, maybe in my less proud moments, it hasn't been, oh yes, Yunus is just being black. So there's been a balance there. So yeah, I'd say yeah.
So have I been...
Your friends, do they celebrate you as you as a black man?
Yeah, I think so. I think because a lot of them will always give a hand when, and they're very proud about coming and working with me. Like if I'm doing something, they'll come and if I need someone to fill in, they'll come and help me with that. And they do celebrate it as well. They explained, and a few of my close friends that I grew up with, work behind the scenes within my business, but they got other things going on, but they take the time to still do that because they really value what I'm doing. So I do feel celebrated in that way, I think.
Excellent. Garvin?
I don't think my friends, we have a specific event, right? This is Garvin's day, we're going to celebrate his blackness. we celebrate your achievements. It's simple as that, black, white, Chinese, or whatever. If you've done something good, we'll celebrate it. Do you know what I mean? There's no special highlight on race, color, religion, or anything like that. It's just, I've done some good things, people celebrate it. We got social media, people will share it, like it, love it, stuff like that. It's just, I don't know, just get on with it. If I can't think of anything specific just to celebrate my blackness, it's just celebrating anyone's achievements.
What's important, and I'm going to conclude at this point because we're moving on to the next stage with you, as you know, but what's important about what the three of you have said with this conclusive answer is so refreshing, because while this is about celebrating black men, the fact that the wider celebrations of those of our friends, colleagues who we love who are not black, it encapsulates, it incorporates that celebration of blackness. In the same way, it incorporates the celebrating of whiteness of your friends, of being Chinese or whatever, without highlighting it, without pronouncing it, that's when you're in a collective. However, when in isolation, because it's so rarely done, as you started off with, it remains important to celebrate black men because it's seldom done. And I'll conclude on this point, and I want everyone to hear me carefully on this, because we had to endure that when George Floyd was murdered in the way that he was, and Black Lives Matter was rising. And I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, the cause, not the organisation, that organisation. I'm talking about the cause, the movement in itself. We heard others coming out. The police in America, Blue Lives Matter. We heard far right saying all lives matter. And everyone here might say, but that's okay. No, not in the context it was okay, because let's give the similitude. If one house is burning on a street and the inhabitants of that house say, please help me, my house is burning down, and all the neighbours say, our houses matter as well, but their houses aren't burning at a particular time. It's that one house that's burning that needs the attention. And that was the case with Black Lives Matter, and it was lost upon so many people. And the racists knew what they were doing when they were saying all lives matter. The black community's causes have been diluted by so many other causes that have joined them over the years. We saw that from the civil rights movement in America. We've seen that with the BAME movement here. So when we then isolate black excellence, celebrating blackness, and I had this with this event, but isn't that racist? But when you're celebrating other causes and you don't need to put a label on it because it's just so generic, nobody complains. But when we say we need to be visible, blackness needs to be visible, there should not be a complaint about that. There should not be, well, you need to bring this group in as well. This other minority ethnic group needs to come in as well. And then it's all equal. No, they can do what they want to do and they will be supported. So when black excellence, black celebration is being highlighted, isolated for a reason, I ask everyone here, including the black community, don't dilute it. Don't diminish it. Celebrate it.